Okay, this is the great story of when I was assaulted by the Counter Terrorism Police. You're gonna absolutely love this one. Hello, my name's Andre Walker. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please do subscribe. The guy behind the camera is really shocked. You'll love this story. Thank you so much for watching the channel. Please do subscribe and hit the bell notification icon. It's the best way to absolutely guarantee you get all my videos as soon as they are released. So I used to work at the European Parliament in Belgium, and believe it or not, I actually lived in Windsor and commuted to Belgium. Just shows you the amount of money that people made when we were members of the European Union. I worked for some right-wing Conservative MPs, but obviously that was part of the time when I became quite good mates with Nigel Farage. Anyway, I always used to get, I think it was like the 9 p.m. train back from Zweedstraat, and I call it Zweedstraat rather than Gare du Midi because I prefer to do it in the old Dutch rather than in French, just to offend the French nation. But anyway, I used to get from Zweedstraat in Brussels to St Pancras in London. The train, believe it or not, only takes an hour and 45 minutes. And I'll tell you something, I know you may hate the EU, but going to Brussels is actually quite a good thing. Anyway, so what I used to do was I always used to book a seat, but whenever I used to get on, somebody had always nicked it and it was always a bit of a nightmare. So what I always used to do was head for the buffet car, which was a standing sort of buffet car type thing, basically just a bar there and some tables. And I always used to get the Duvel beer because they only, I think, used to have 4 bottles, which I'd see off myself in an hour and 45 minutes or whatever it was. So anyway, as I was walking from my seat to the buffet car, you know how obviously it gets quite tight as you go in. I was walking through and there was a guy, Asian gentleman, in the buffet car. Now, obviously, I started walking towards him in this little corridor thing, expecting him to step aside, but he didn't. He walked into the corridor, pushed me up against the side of the wall and snarled in my face. Now, I've tried to impersonate the way he snarled at me, but I've never made it anything other than quite comical. So anyway, I walked into the buffet car and there's one other bloke stood there and I went, bloody hell, did you see that? He went, yeah. Do you know him? I went, no, I've never met that bloke in my life. I said, but I would have assumed he'd have stepped aside because it's the buffet car. Anyway, so then I'm stood there, I'm just having my drink, and this bloke comes through again, and he sort of snarls at me again as he walks past. And the bloke I was with said, I swear, he said, I don't believe, the bloke I'd met, by the way, I don't believe that you don't know who that is. I said, I've never seen that man in my life. You saw what happened. I walked towards the buffet car, he grabbed me, and then he snarled in my face in a way that wasn't comical, but I can't impersonate in a non-comical way. So anyway, this bloke then, you know, he came back from, he was in first class, I'd come from standard. The buffet car's obviously in between, like most trains, and he's still snarling at me. But he was absolutely shit-faced. You could see he was shit-faced. And he was buying champagne for all these women. Right, there must have been about 3 birds there. And they're buying this champagne, and he's pouring it out. And he keeps pouring them this champagne, then going back to first class. I mean, he was lagered, right? So anyway, I walked up. So because he kept snarling at me, the guy I was now chatting to said to me, look, you're just going to have to get the guard on the train because that bloke's after a kickoff. He's already grabbed you and he's going to have you. I said, all right, well, I'm going to do that. So I walked up to these birds he was chatting to and went, oh, your mate's had a couple. They went, oh, it's not our mate. No, he's an important person. And they pulled out this business card that had DC Harry Singer, Metropolitan Police, Counter Terrorism Unit, right? I thought, bloody hell, right? And he was an Asian gentleman. Harry Singer sounded like probably the name of an Asian chap. H-A-R-I, Singer, the Asian Singer way rather than whatever. Anyway, so I clocked his direct dial phone number on the exchange, right? Now, to be fair to this bloke, he calmed down, and whatever it was, he was then in his cage in the first class cabin, which I could never afford to go into. Anyway, so I got off the train and I walked up to these 2 BTP constables. And I said, look, you know, I've got a bit of a problem here, you know, DC Harry Singer, rah, rah, rah. And they said, look, he might have had a bit of a rough day in Belgium. Sometimes they're trying to track down terrorists and all that. I thought, yeah, maybe, all right, fair enough. So the next day I thought, oh, bugger it. So I phoned his number, which I'd clocked off the business card. And they went, hello, Counter Terrorism Command, or whatever it is. I went, hello, is DC Harry Singer there? And they went, no, he's out to lunch at the moment, mate. Can we take a message? And I said, yes, he assaulted me on the Eurostar last night, so I'm pressing charges. If he could phone me back in the next hour, I might consider not doing it. And the bloke you could hear at the other end of the line sort of staggering back. And he went, sorry, are you joking? I went, no, I am going to press charges. He assaulted me on the Eurostar last night. He went, how do you know it was him? I went, oh, come on, mate. If you know he was on the Eurostar last night and I'm saying I can give you a full description of him, then I think we don't need to have that conversation, do we? And he went, how did you get this number? Now, this was the genius moment. How I got the number was Harry Singer was pissed and had given the business card to some slapper he was chatting up. But actually, I said, I work for the London Assembly for Sir Bob Neal, who's on the Metropolitan Police Authority. You don't need to ask me how I got the number. I just got the number and I'm going to be real trouble. So this bloke shit his pants, as you can imagine. Sir Bob Neal, by the way, very, very, very lovely chap. He was the leader of the London Assembly Conservative Metropolitan Police Authority, was the governing body of the Metropolitan Police at the time. So I get a phone call back, and you couldn't quite hear it, but you just knew the entire office had this on speakerphone. And Mr. DC Singer phoned me back. And he said, how could you prove it was me? I went, listen, let's not play that game. He said, I'm going to demand CCTV. I said, I'll tell you what we're going to do. I'm not going to make a criminal complaint right now. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to get Sir Bob Neal to raise it directly with the Commissioner in the full public meeting of the Metropolitan Police Authority. He's going to stand up and say, why was my researcher assaulted by somebody from the Counter Terrorism Unit? And this bloke, you could hear his voice just sink. He went, oh. I said, now let me tell you this. I'm not going to do that. I'll tell you why I'm not going to do that, because I'm not a knob. But I will tell you, 9 out of 10 people in my position would have done that to you and destroyed your career. I'm going to tell you this, sir. Drunkenness, violence and abuse on Eurostar trains is wholly unacceptable from serving Metropolitan Police officers. You should be ashamed of yourself. And he went, I'm very sorry, sir. I'm very sorry, sir. And you could hear them all gasping in the background. And then he went, have a nice Christmas, sir. Have a nice Christmas. I said, you got off very lightly. Put the phone down. I'm telling you this story because DC Harry Singer, I don't know if he'll ever see this, but good luck to you. You'd had a couple. He has retired now, so he can't get into any trouble for doing it. I have to say, at the time, it did make me laugh. But now I will say to you that I think he did behave a little bit inappropriately. But anyway, I suppose the reason I didn't actually, I wouldn't actually have gone to the Metropolitan Police Authority. It would have been an abuse of my position, and I didn't want to counter his abuse of his position with an abuse of my position, because that just would have been a very messy situation. But I will say this, I wouldn't have done it because I think these guys do have a very difficult job, and presumably whatever he'd seen in Brussels, I believe that woman actually, or sorry, I believe that police officer afterwards, whatever he'd seen in Brussels was probably a bit nasty, and that's why he wasn't in a good mood that night. But that is the tale of when I was assaulted by the Counter Terrorism Police and they apologised to me. I think it's a pretty good one. Until next time, goodbye.